Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be breaking down my top 36 running back rankings and tiers for week number 9 of the 2024 fantasy football season. But before we could get into things, I would like to ask that if you guys are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, that you please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure that you leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter or X, please do so at NotoriousFantasy. So without further ado, let's get to my week number 9 top 36 running back rankings and tiers for the 2024 fantasy football season. We begin with the no-brainer running backs 1 tier with my running back number 1, Saquon Barkley of the Philadelphia Eagles, going up against the Jacksonville Jaguars at home in Philadelphia. Now, Saquon Barkley did get cucked by Jalen Hurts multiple times last week as Saquon Barkley failed to find the end zone, but he did rush for over 100 yards, and in such a wet dream matchup like he has here up against a Jacksonville Jaguars defense that will have zero answer for Saquon Barkley and this Philadelphia Eagles offense, I expect Saquon Barkley to get back with the good graces of the fantasy gods and score a touchdown or multiple in this game. So Saquon Barkley up against the Jaguars, I got him bouncing back as a top 4 running back. At number 2, we got Kyren Williams of the LA Rams going up against the Seattle Seahawks in Seattle. Now, Kyren Williams is one of those guys that is just in love with the end zone. He has scored a touchdown or more in every single game. This man has played in 7 games this season, and he has 10 touchdowns. Death taxes, Kyren Williams touchdown, and going up against the Seattle Seahawks defense that gets gashed by the run weekly, Michael Myers style, I fully expect Kyren Williams to go nuclear yet again. At number 3, we have Bijan Robinson of the Atlanta Falcons going up against the Dallas Cowboys at home in Atlanta. Now, the Dallas Cowboys defense always gets the Suka-Lamink special, just like their offense, all summer long, like that Kid Rock song, right? Everyone talks them up, and then ultimately they come out limp dick, and that's exactly what this Cowboys defense is. Bijan Robinson had us in the first half. I'm not going to lie. Weeks 1 through 5, he was basically a complete and utter disaster, but over the last 3 weeks, he's been a top 9 running back in every single game and a top 4 running back twice in PPR. This week, I expect him to keep up with the good ways. His feng shui is going his way, so up against the Dallas Cowboys, I am feeling real nicey about Bijan Robinson. The final running back in this tier is going to be Tractor Cedo Derrick Henry of the Baltimore Ravens going up against the Denver Broncos at home in Baltimore. Now, last week, Derrick Henry did, in a way, shit the bed. He is one of those running backs like Kyren Williams. He's played in 8 games. He has 11 touchdowns. He scored a touchdown or more in every single game. And a lot of people are going to panic because, Nick, the Denver Broncos defense is great. And Nick, the Denver Broncos defense is this. The Denver Broncos defense is that. And yes, I agree. The Broncos have one of the most fearsome defenses in the NFL. But Derrick Henry is Derrick Henry. Do not overthink things because Derrick Henry only scored 15 PPR points last week. Even up against Denver, I expect Derrick Henry to put belt to ass as a top 4 running back. Moving now into the next tier, which is just the lower tier, no-brainer running back 1s, right? No one is questioning starting any of these guys. And we begin with Kenneth Walker III, Sir Kenneth Walker of the Seahawks going up against the Rams. Now, the Seahawks got absolutely sliced and diced like they were playing Fruit Ninja last week by the Buffalo Bills, but I get the Rams offense looked very good up against the Vikings last week, but I do think this is much more of an even match. I don't think the Seahawks are going to be getting haymakers to the face so that they're not going to be able to run the ball late. Kenneth Walker is another one of these guys that just loves the end zone. He has scored more than 1 touchdown in 2 games this season. He scored a touchdown in 4 of 6 games this year, 7 total touchdowns on the season. The Rams defense has more holes than a golf course, so Kenneth Walker should be able to bounce back. Next up, we got Alvin Kamara of the Saints going up against the Carolina Panthers in Carolina. Last time these two teams played was back in week number 1, where Alvin Kamara was the running back number 6, and if he doesn't live up to expectations here, I would genuinely be shocked. The report right now is that Derek Carr will be back under center with Shaheed out for the remainder of the season. Alvin Kamara is going to be seeing a shit ton of dump-offs game in and game out, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend that the Saints offense is now back because Derek Carr's back and the Saints are going to go back to their old ways. But going up against the Carolina Panthers, you don't have to be this elite offense in order to have great success. Shout out to Borat. Next up, we got Devon Achane of the Miami Dolphins going up against the no one circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills. Now, on paper, this is a great matchup for a running back. The problem is the Miami Dolphins offense reeks to high heaven up against the Buffalo Bills. Normally the Bills absolutely demolish the Dolphins. But back in week number 2, Achane was the running back 2 up against the Bills. And every game with Tua, he's been the running back 3, 2, and 2. So while I am nervous, and as a Dolphins fan, I've already admitted defeat. I think we're going to lose. I'm waving the white flag. I think Achane, even if the Dolphins get plowed, I do believe Achane will have a big game. Next up, we got James Let Him Cook of the Buffalo Bills going up against the Dolphins. And Let Him Cook is exactly what he did up against the Dolphins last time out in week 2. Not 1, not 2, but 3 touchdowns on the head top of the Dolphins, putting us on a t-shirt. He has been a top 7 running back in 3 games. In week 7, he was coming off the injury and he was a little bit cold, but last week he picked up. He looked fully healthy up against the Seahawks as the running back 1, and honestly, I think he could definitely repeat that this week. Any of the running backs in the first 2 tiers here, if they were the running back number 1 on the week, I wouldn't be shocked at all. Next up, we got DeAndre Swift going up against the Arizona Cardinals in Arizona. Now, Swift has been a top 11 running back in 4 straight weeks, and ever since the team kind of pushed towards giving the ball more to Roschon Johnson, that pushed DeAndre Swift into fantasy football superstardom. The guy was as irrelevant as it gets for the first 3 weeks, and even when the Bears offense comes out looking limp dick, even when the offense isn't percolating, DeAndre Swift is still able to put up big numbers. So up against the Cardinals defense, I think you can easily run on. We saw that last week with the Dolphins offense. I think Swift should have an at bare minimum top 12 game. To close out this tier, we got Jahmyr Gibbs of the Lions going up against the Green Bay Packers in Green Bay. Back-to-back games as a top 9 running back, and I do believe that they're going to continue to give David Montgomery more and more work, because David Montgomery got hurt up against the Vikings, and he played last week, but he wasn't really himself. I think as he gets more and more healthy, he will take away more and more touches, but Jahmyr Gibbs isn't a guy that needs the lion's share of the carries. This is not a guy that needs 20, 25 touches to succeed. All he needs is 10 to 13, 15 carries sometimes, a couple of dump-offs, and this motherfucker could score 30-plus fantasy points. This Detroit Lions offense is amazing. And going up against the Packers defense, I feel very confident in the offense of the Lions to be able to get up and potentially be up in this game and running the rock a ton with Jahmyr Gibbs. Next up, we move on into the 3rd tier here, which is the RB2 tier. Now, I get it. Technically, some of these guys aren't RB2s because, Nick, you know, the first guys you talked about, that's just 10 guys. Nobody RB1s or 12 players. You get the point right there. A drop down from the no-brainer running back 1 tier. So we got Aaron Jones going up against the Indianapolis Colts at home in Minnesota. Cold like Minnesota. Now, Aaron Jones has been pretty up and down this season. He's been the running back 11, week 1, then 29, 6, 16, 42, 12, and 27. I was disappointed with his performance up against the Rams defense because the Rams defense is no bueno against the run, but if there ever was a game to bounce back, and with the Vikings losing back-to-back games, I think we're going to see a whole lot of Aaron Jones, and he's going to make us a whole lot of money like that Antonio Brown song. The Colts defense is trash against the run, so Aaron Jones should be able to get back into his top 18 ways. Next up, we got Jonathan Taylor, JT, of the Colts going up against the Minnesota Vikings in Minnesota on Sunday Night Football. Now, Jonathan Taylor was returning from an injury last week, and I was very pessimistic with my ranking, right? He's coming off the high ankle sprain. I don't know if they're really going to push the pedal to the metal, but that is exactly what they did. He was the running back 12. He looked like he never left. He's a safe bet to be a top 18 running back every single week, but the reason why I backtrack slightly on not ranking him even higher is because I don't love the matchup up against the Vikings, even if we did just see Kyren Williams have great success up against that defense. Next up, we got Kareem Hunt going up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, until Isaiah Pacheco returns, Kareem Hunt is going to be a top 18, top 24 running back guaranteed every single week. Now, the return date of Pacheco is speculated to potentially be next week, so this might be our one last hurrah with Kareem Hunt going up against a Buccaneers defense, which is a finger-licking good matchup. Kareem was limited with the quad injury on Thursday, so you want to make sure to monitor that and make sure he's good to go. But in the last 3 games, he's been a top 24 running back in every single game and a top 12 running back in 2 out of 3 games, and he has 4 total touchdowns in 4 total games. Again, is Kareem Hunt the same Kareem Hunt he used to be back when he was in Kansas City before he did what we all know he did? Then the answer to that would be a resounding Fuck no, baby. But I do believe he is still a competent running back on a offense that can kick things into high gear up against a defense that I believe he will be able to put up a big performance. So he feels like a safe bet to finish inside the top 18. Next up, we got Josh Jacobs, another questionable running back. Important to note, Kareem Hunt was questionable, and then we're going to talk about Jacobs up next, and then Pollard, who's also questionable, and then in tier number 4, the lower tier running backs, the first 2 guys there are questionable as well. So Josh Jacobs is questionable. He returned to practice on Thursday with the ankle, so there's nothing to worry about. Anytime that Jordan Love is out of the game, Josh Jacobs magically turns things up to a whole nother level. He puts things into hyperdrive. Last week, he had his best game of the season as the running back 3, and the week prior, he was the running back 13. Whether Jordan Love plays or not is definitely up in the air, and while technically Josh Jacobs has been a little bit more successful with Malik Willis in the game, I actually think it is better for Jacobs with Jordan Love under center because the team's able to move the ball more effectively. Now that Josh Jacobs has actually found the end zone, he's scored 4 times over the last 4 games, and he kind of has the monkey off his back. I do expect Jacobs to be a consistent RB2 weekly. Next up, to close things out, we got Tony Pollard going up against the New England Patriots. Pollard, again, questionable. His foot injury sidelined him in practice on Thursday. Make sure you monitor that, because if he doesn't play, then it might be Joey Chestnut's brother, Julius Chestnut, as the lead back, because Tajay Spears has been dealing with a hamstring injury for what feels like the whole entire season. Pollard, another one of these guys, you kind of just hang your hat on him being a top 24 running back. I don't think anyone's really chomping at the bit to start Tony Pollard and just claim him as like this top 12 elite running back, right? Because the Titans offense just isn't good enough to claim him as doing that, but he's on an offense that will give him 18 plus touches a game. He has decent receiving upside, typically going to get 3, 4, 5 targets a game. So again, while I'm never going to sit here and be super excited about Pollard, he is a guy that, hey, he's a very reliable running back too. I've got him on a couple of my teams, and I'm always fine starting him. But again, you're never sitting there like, oh, I can't wait to play Tony Pollard. I can't wait to see what he's going to do, because again, the Titans are a fucking disaster. Next up, we move on into the lower tier running back 2 range, beginning with Tyron Tracy, running back of the Giants going up against the Commanders. He was a guy that I was worried about potentially playing, but now he is expected to clear the concussion protocol ahead of Sunday, and unless anything ends up bearing any setbacks here, then Tracy will be locked and loaded as the running back 1 on the team. And up against the Commanders defense, I'm feeling real good about Mr. Tracy. But before we get on into Tracy and the rest of the running backs in today's video, I would like to give you guys a quick word for our friends and our partner over at Underdog. If you're brand new to Underdog and sign up using promo code Notorious, or click on the link in the video description, you will get your free pick, which is LeBron higher than half a total point tonight. And if that pick hits with the other pick you select either in the NBA or in the NFL, then you receive 3 times what you put into your pick'em. If you do multiple other picks, the payout will be higher. You will also receive a first-time deposit offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash. Again, if you're watching this on Saturday or Sunday, and hey, what happens? LeBron's not playing. You receive a different free pick of another NBA player higher than half a total point, or an NFL player higher than half of a total yard. So make sure you guys check that out. Promo code Notorious to get your free pick of LeBron James higher than half a total yard, plus a first-time deposit offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash. So back on into things here. We begin with Tyron Tracy. Now, Tracy was a guy that I was given the hook to a special, hitting him with the Gawk 9000 all summer. And I said once he took over from Singletary, he will not look back, and he will look great. The biggest problem with Tracy is that the offense is anemic. The offense struggles to move the ball weekly, and Daniel Jones kind of just puts the nail in the coffin of that, and that being ranking him as like a top 12 running back every single week, because he has the pedigree to do it. He's been a top 8 running back in 2 of the last 3 games, but the offense lets him down. The offensive line has a lot of holes. The offensive line spreads like the Red Sea. So I don't love Tracy. I love the player. I just don't love the situation. I love the matchup. So I've got it ranked relatively highly, but there are definitely some downsides, which is why he's not ranked higher. Next up, we got the other running back in this game, Brian Robinson, who is also questionable, dealing with a hamstring injury, limited in practice on Thursday. Brian Robinson is another one of these guys that you just feel good about being a top 24 guy, right? If you're trying to really get down on your knees for him and claim he's like this elite top 12 running back, I just don't think he's that in this offense, but the offense is good enough to knock on the door and get him a touchdown in most weeks. Robinson is a good enough running back to have a stranglehold over the backfield. I think if they really pushed Brian Robinson to getting 20 plus carries a game and a couple of dump offs, then he would be a lot better. But it just doesn't seem like the team wants to do that. They're happy with his 15, 18 carries per game and maybe a dump off or two per week. The Giants matchup, though, is very good for Brian Robinson. So again, while I'm not going to throw the crown on him, I'm not going to pretend like he's something that he's not. He's a fine running back, too. Next up, we got J.K. Dobbins. Now, early on in the season, to me, it felt like a stone-cold lock that J.K. Dobbins was just going to be a top 12 running back every single week, where he was the running back 4 in week 1, running back 5 in week 2. Then running back 38, 34, they get the bye week, running back 13, 28, and 14. He feels more like a reliable running back 2 compared to a reliable running back 1. But based upon where you drafted him, or maybe you're in a league with a bunch of dumbasses and you're able to pick him up off the waiver wire, you're very happy with that production because you drafted him with one of your last picks or you picked him up off the waiver wire. So again, while I don't want to give him a crazy amount of praise because he has been kind of inefficient. Early on, he was averaging like 7, 8, 9, 10 yards a carry. Now he's kind of honing things back a little bit, but he's going to get his 70 plus rushing yards a game, going to get his couple of dump offs and should be able to find the end zone. So again, up against the Browns, it just feels right to rank him here. Next up, we got James Conner going up against the Bears. James Conner's another one of these guys that's just like a no-brainer running back too. The Bears matchup drops him down a little bit because up against other defenses that are easier, I would feel a lot more confident in him, obviously. Up against the Dolphins, a pretty bad run defense. He was the running back 20. Anything from running back, I'd say like 16 to 24 should be the expectation for Conner. And if he's able to get over the top and be like a top 10 running back, then that's just some extra cherry on top there. Next up, we got David Montgomery going up against the Green Bay Packers in Green Bay. Now, back-to-back games with just 9 carries for David Montgomery, which is not the normal. But he did still score 2 touchdowns last week until they really put him back into his normal 12 plus carries, where sometimes he might get 20 plus carries. I don't want to rank him higher, but he has such big touchdown equity in this offense. He scored a touchdown or more in every single game outside of one, which was the game he got hurt up against the cold like Minnesota Vikings in Minnesota. So again, Montgomery belongs in this range. Next up, we got Chuba Hubbard going up against the New Orleans Saints. Now, Chuba Hubbard definitely is taking a step back with Bryce Young in the offense. Why? Because the offense just isn't able to move the ball as effectively. But up against the Saints, last time out, Chuba Hubbard was a disaster with Bryce Young, but I want to make something very clear. Bryce Young looks way better right now than he did to start off the season, especially because he played well up against a Broncos defense that, again, last week, I really do believe they're one of the best defenses in the NFL. Now, Chuba just scored 9 fantasy points last week, so the floor is significantly lower, but this is a great matchup for a running back, so I'm not going to ding him too hard. Next up, we got Tank Bigsby. Now, if they say that Etienne isn't playing, then I am bumping Bigsby up into the 3rd tier, right? The running back 2 tier. But right now, we don't know that for sure. It's a game time decision. And the problem with that is this game is at 4:05. So we probably will not know until like 3 o'clock when you're writing major lineup decisions, which is why Bigsby is down here. Now, he's been very up and down. He hasn't really found much consistency. We know he's a great running back. We know he's very talented, but losing Christian Kirk for the season, potentially being without Brian Thomas Jr. in this game, who's also a game-time decision, will tell you that the offense won't be able to move the balls effectively, especially with Trevor Lawrence's shortcomings. But with all that said, while I think Bigsby's a really talented player, he's averaging 5.8 yards per fucking carry, which is chef's kiss magnifique, like the guy with Ratatouille in his chef's hat. I can't fully jump on board because we don't know how healthy Etienne is, and we also just don't know which version of this Jags offense we will see. Next up, we move on into the RB3 tier, headlined by Ramondre Stevenson going up against the Titans in Tennessee, running back 5 last week. Now, if Drake May plays, you can bump him up a couple of spots, but if Drake May doesn't play and it's Jacoby Brissett season, that basically leaves us in a scenario where you just know the offense isn't going to be as good. Now, last week, I get they beat the fucking Jets, and no, Nick, you can't say the Jets fucking suck because the Jets just beat the Texans, even though the Texans didn't have Nico Collins or Stephon Diggs. Okay, congrats. The Jets are a better team than maybe I gave them credit for, but the Patriots just beat them, and the Patriots suck more cock than someone you could find on OnlyFans. So, Ramondre Stevenson going up against the Titans. Pretty middle-of-the-road matchup. I love Stevenson, but again, he's another guy that just hasn't been consistent. Next up, we got Alexander Madison. So for Madison, last week was a disaster, but prior to that, running back 19 and 16, he's going to get around 20 touches a game. They don't want anything to do with Zamir White. The offense isn't very good, but going up against the Bengals will make even the worst offenses look pretty good. Next up, we got, you might just get hit with the Rico McMillan. Rico Dowdle going up against the Falcons. Now, Rico missed last week because he was sick. He practiced in full on Wednesday. He's going to be good to go. That sucked last week that he wasn't in because I think he could have had a decent game against the 49ers, rocking with Zeke and Dalvin Cook. The running back duo obviously did not work out. The biggest problem with Rico is just that I don't know if this offense can shake the funk off, right? They just have a stink to them, and I'm not sure they're going to be able to escape it. Now, normally the Cowboys suck dick against good teams, great teams even, and they suck dick against the Lions. They sucked against the 49ers. But the Falcons, they're good, but they're not in that great tier, right? They're not in the upper echelon tier. So I think Rico should be fine. But again, with Dak just being as inconsistent as it gets, what is really stopping Dowdle from just shitting the bed again? Really, the answer is nothing stopping him from doing that. Next up, we got Chase Brown. Now, Chase Brown, a couple of weeks ago, we prematurely kind of gave this guy a little bit too much credit. Running back 6, 10, and 20 from weeks 4 through 6. Then running back 37, 28. Him and Zach Moss are basically in a 50-50 split, but if you watch the games, Chase Brown is just a better player, and it seems like Chase Brown has more touchdown equity up against the Raiders defense that could lead to a blow-up explosion game. But again, with this offense being pretty shaky, with T. Higgins probably not playing, Chase Brown kind of just falls into this range of, hey, you know, you're not pissed off if you have to play any of these guys, but you're also not sitting there pretending like you really love playing them. Next up, we move on into the YOLO tier, and this is just the tier where it's like, okay, if you play these guys, you understand the downside, but they could hit, right? These are all guys that are talented players. We're just going to name them off real quick, and then we're going to go in depth with each guy. Rachaad White, Bucky Irving, Nick Chubb, Javonte Williams, Austin Eckler, Raheem Mostert, Zach Moss, ETN. The only two guys there that I think you can argue are not the best are Zach Moss and ETN. All the other guys are fine, right? Rachaad with 2 A's, White back-to-back weeks as a top 18 running back, but he's going up against the Chiefs defense that allows the fewest amount of points per game to running backs, and he's in a backfield with 3 other running backs, or 2 other running backs plus himself, a 3-headed backfield. So while I think Rachaad White has earned a spot higher up in the rankings, because while he is as inefficient as it gets running the ball, he's a great pass catcher, and he scored 3 total touchdowns over the last 2 games, him going against the Chiefs makes me incredibly nervous, and it should make you nervous. Bucky Irving, another guy with a Q tag. He's a guy where I read on Twitter that toe injury that he suffered, he didn't practice on Thursdays, managing the toe injury. That is going to be something that he will likely be fighting up against one-on-one, Stipe versus John Jones, right, on the whole season. So he's going to be dealing with the toe injury all year, which is going to lead him to potentially being just hampered the whole season, so we don't really see the true upside, and him also just being questionable every single week and kind of frustrating you if you are a Bucky Irving owner, especially since the game isn't until Monday. Continue to monitor the situation. If he doesn't play, I will boost up Rachaad White a little bit more, but he's been questionable for a while, and he plays every single game. Top 18 running back in 3 straight games. Bucky Irving is way better than Rachaad White, but Rachaad White is going to see more of the targets, thus is more likely to score a touchdown without Chris Godwin, without Mike Evans. Bucky Irving, again, the talent is there, but the matchup is the opposite of good, so we're not going to try to get cute and rank him super highly. Next up, we got 9-inch Nicholas Chubb going up against the Chargers. Nick Chubb has been the running back 26 and 43 since returning. Jameis has turned this offense completely around, and that's going to be great for Nick Chubb potentially being a league winner. What I mean by that is as they give him more touches, he played a lot more snaps in week 8 compared to week 7, but as he gets healthier, because while he had 16 carries and he had 11 carries the week prior, he's only averaging 2.7 yards per carry. So he's not the same old Nick Chubb that you're used to. It takes some time when you fucking destroy every single thing in one of your knees and your leg is turned sideways like a fucking right angle, okay? We're not making fun of the injuries. 9-inch Nicholas Chubb is one of my favorite players in the NFL, so I will never make fun of him. I'm just being honest. That's what it looked like. I'm as much of a doctor as Johnny Sins, but it obviously didn't look good at the time, and every report was that the injury wasn't good when you have to have 2 surgeries, obviously, because of the swelling, this, that, and the other thing. I'm not going to go super in depth there, but again, going up against the Chargers is not a great matchup. Him, playing-wise, hasn't been the best. Once he turns it all around, we're going to be jumping for joy if you drafted Nick Chubb, but as of right now, kind of just meh, right? If he finds the end zone, he'll be fine. If not, you're probably very disappointed. Next up, we got Javonte. Now, Javonte pulled the wool over our eyes in Week 7 against the Saints. Not scoring 1, but he scored 2 touchdowns, right? And then everyone's like, okay, it's time to play Javonte. Nick, you were an idiot. You told me to sit Javonte. So in week number 8, let's all play Javonte. Let's all jump for joy. Let's all fucking stroke each other off like our name was Deshaun Watson, right? And then he goes out there up against the Carolina Panthers in a matchup that is right for the taking, in a matchup that you would talk about how you're salivating thinking about it. You're thinking about how great Javonte Williams is going to be. And you know what Javonte Williams did? He scored fewer than 10 fantasy points. He had 17 carries for 44 yards. 17 carries for 44 yards? That's not good. Now he's going up against the Ravens. Sure, are the Ravens the best defense in the NFL? Are they this heavily fortified unit? No. But it's going to be tough for Javonte. He's been outside the running back 30 in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games. Played 8 games. So quick math, 3 games out of the top 30. I don't feel great about Javonte, and I don't think you should either. Obviously, he's a talented enough player to eventually, every once in a while, have a good game, but with Bo Nix potentially vulturing the touchdowns in every single game, what's the fun? What's the fun in that? Next up, we got Eckler. Eckler is one of these guys that's going to get his 4, 5, 6, 7 rushes, right? If you're real lucky, he's going to get 8 or 9. He's going to get his 4 dump-offs a game. If he takes one of those for 20 yards, and then the others are going for like 5 yards, and he gets 40 receiving yards, and his couple of carries go for 30 yards, he's going to get you 10 to 12 points. That's what Eckler is. 10 to 12 points every single week. Worst case scenario, probably like 8 points. So again, while that's fine, why would you start that? Unless you're down bad at running back, right? But there's only 2 teams on bye. It's not like everyone's on bye where it's like, oh, there's 4 teams on bye and you're scavenging the internet trying to figure out, oh, who should I pick up as a waiver wire running back, right? All my running backs are on bye. Sure, I get it. Then you play Eckler. Oh, 2 teams on bye? You shouldn't be playing Eckler. Next up, we got Raheem, the wet dream Mostert. He scored 2 touchdowns last week, which was great, but he had 9 carries for 19 yards, and he had the 2 touchdowns. He's averaging 3.5 yards per carry this season, and does not look like the Raheem Mostert that was one of the best running backs in the National Football League last year. He's old, so it's not that crazy of a scenario. The reason why I liked him in fantasy drafts was because if something happened to H-Hand, knock on wood, we don't root for injuries, Raheem could become a league winner because I thought the Dolphins' offense would be better than they are. Now, maybe they are better than what they've shown us, but based on what they've shown us, with Tua under center, they're still not this elite offense. Again, could Mostert score against the Bills? Yes, because they're not good against the run. But will McDaniel actually commit to the run? Probably not, because he's a fucking idiot. Final 2 players here. Zach Moss is doubtful. Neck injury. We'll see if he plays or not. Going up against the Raiders, he's fine. If he doesn't play, I still don't feel the best about Chase Brown. Final guy, Travis Etienne. Etienne has been demoted. You've been demoted you're fired from being a top 18-ish guy to now he's like, I don't even want to start him because I think Bigsby's better than him. Now, Doug the Pug Peterson, did go out and say that, hey, just because you get hurt doesn't mean you lose the backfield. You're still going to get the keys to the city, blah, 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 blah. Let's see it before we believe it, because I don't think that Doug Peterson is stupid enough to give the reins back to Etienne, who has been not good Anthony Fantano this season. So thank you guys all so much for watching. If you have been enjoying, make sure you guys Hadouken, hit that fucking subscribe button like it owes you some money. Leave a like on today's video. Lightly caress the like button. It would help me out a ton. I love you guys more than you will ever know. We recently hit 38,000 subscribers. Truly astonishing, honestly. It really is. The number that a couple years ago I would have thought was impossible. So without all you guys, without all your support, the whole ship sinks. So I love you guys more than you'll ever know. If you're not on Underdog, make sure you guys check it out. Get that free pick. LeBron James, higher than half a total point, plus a first-time deposit offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash. I will love you guys. Long time. Hope you have a great one. We'll be back either later today with the wide receiver version of today's video, the wide receiver rankings, or tomorrow you get the wide receiver rankings and then the quarterback and tight end rankings. Have a great one. See you guys soon. Love you guys. Bye.